¿Vas a editar del computador del caballero o de los dos?
Docente, probando sonido. Yo no conocí ese cuarto allá atrás. Comenzamos en 14 minutos. Necesito el enlace también. Perfecto, gracias. Los profes que están en las últimas filas les tenemos un obsequio aquí adelante.
estar ahí, pero cuando vaya a estar al frente, porque aquí en este plan,
Insisto con los profes que están en la parte de atrás, aquí les tenemos unos obsequios en la parte de adelante. Bueno, son las 9 de la mañana, la hora en que comenzamos con la conferencia, pero vamos a dar unos 10 minutos por cuestión de la lluvia, porque algunos profes me han escrito que están retrasados, entonces vamos a dar 10 minutos.
Bienvenido a la Corporación Universitaria Minuto de Dios. A continuación, haremos la presentación de las rutas de evacuación y de los protocolos de emergencia que se deben seguir en caso de que un suceso repentino ocurra durante su estadía en nuestras instalaciones. Nuestra institución cuenta con personal entrenado y capacitado para atenderlo en caso de alguna emergencia. Ellos están debidamente identificados como brigadistas, lo guiarán y ayudarán en caso de que ocurra alguna situación que amerite su servicio. La sede principal de UNIMINUTO consta de 3 bloques de edificios conectados entre sí, que a continuación conoceremos. El edificio Padre Rafael García Herreros, que posee 5 pisos de altura. Cuenta con escaleras que permiten la movilidad. En cada una de las plantas existen señales de evacuación que lleva a 2 salidas hacia la parte externa, que lo guiarán hasta el punto de encuentro. Adicionalmente, se pueden ubicar extintores de fuego, ubicados estratégicamente en los pasillos de cada piso, como también camillas rígidas para el transporte de pacientes. El edificio Padre Diego Jaramillo cuenta con 8 pisos, donde se permite la movilidad de la comunidad académica entre bloques para un mayor proceso de evacuación en caso de alguna catástrofe natural. Las escaleras conectan con 3 salidas que llevan al punto de encuentro, ubicado a las afueras de la institución. Al igual que el edificio Padre Rafael García Herreros, este edificio cuenta con la señalización de rutas de evacuación, extintores, gabinetes hidráulicos y camillas rígidas estratégicamente ubicadas. El edificio San Juan Eudes cuenta con 8 pisos que conecta con los otros 2 bloques de edificios. Asimismo, posee rutas de evacuación que trasladan a quienes estén dentro de la universidad hacia una de las 3 salidas de emergencia. Cada uno de los pisos del edificio San Juan Eudes posee gabinetes hidráulicos, extintores y camillas rígidas, ubicadas estratégicamente en caso de que suceda algo inesperado. En caso de emergencia, siga atentamente las instrucciones de los brigadistas o del personal de la universidad del edificio donde se encuentre usted. Además, tenga en cuenta estas recomendaciones. Si no conoce el área en la que está, evacúe por donde lo hacen las demás personas. Suspenda lo que está haciendo y mantenga la calma. Evacúe por las escaleras, conservando la derecha. No use los ascensores. Y si pertenece a la comunidad académica de UNIMINUTO y está acompañado de un visitante, llévelo con usted. No regrese por ningún motivo al interior del edificio. En caso de sismo, resguárdese en una columna estructural del edificio o en un sitio seguro, donde se proteja de la caída de objetos. Espere indicaciones y proceda con la evacuación. En caso de existir humo en la ruta de evacuación, agáchese y avance gateando hasta encontrar un lugar seguro. Con el apoyo y compromiso de todos, fortalecemos la prevención y el autocuidado, garantizando la seguridad, salud y bienestar de la comunidad universitaria. Gracias por su atención. UNIMINUTO, excelencia que hace la diferencia.
Bueno, muy bien, muy buenos días. El Centro de Excelencia Docente AEU les da la bienvenida a esta conferencia con Denis Hurley. Pero antes les quiero hacer una invitación muy especial. Esta es una invitación para el profesor inquieto, curioso, creativo e innovador que le gusta hacer cosas distintas y mejorar cada día su práctica en el ambiente de aprendizaje. Esta es una invitación a usted, sí, a usted, profesor de UNIMINUTO. Uno de los derechos del profesor de UNIMINUTO es beneficiarse de los programas de formación y actualización académica. Para ayudar a fortalecer este derecho, el Centro de Excelencia Docente realizará la segunda versión del encuentro de experiencias de aula, transformando desde el aula. El propósito del encuentro es reflexionar en torno a las experiencias significativas que se desarrollan en el ejercicio docente, a partir del enfoque praxeológico del modelo educativo de Uniminuto, con base en sus 4 etapas: ver, actuar, juzgar y devolver creativamente. Uno de los deberes del profesor de Uniminuto es buscar la excelencia en la docencia, entre otras cosas, seleccionando cuidadosamente las estrategias de enseñanza-aprendizaje más adecuadas. Precisamente, el encuentro es un espacio para mostrar lo que usted, profesor de Uniminuto, hace. En este momento quizás esté formulando la pregunta: ¿cómo sé si mi práctica docente es innovadora, es creativa, es arriesgada? Déjeme ayudarle con la respuesta. Innovadora, uso nuevos conceptos, le incorporo tendencias, es diferente. Creativa, motiva y apasiona tanto a mí como a mis estudiantes. Sí, ellos sonríen, se divierten en mi clase y aprenden. Arriesgada. Uniminuto me proporciona el contenido del curso, pero me gusta arriesgarme ensayando con estrategias de enseñanza. En este orden de ideas, sus derechos y sus deberes confluyen en compartir su experiencia de aula, y el Centro de Excelencia Docente, AEO, le acompaña y apoya para que participe. Para ello, el centro dispone de un micrositio donde encuentra toda la información detallada para enviar su experiencia, que será evaluada por pares nacionales e internacionales a partir de una serie de criterios que usted conocerá previamente. Todo está muy bien. Ahora podría estarse preguntando: ¿y qué gano yo como profesor de Uniminuto al compartir lo que hago? Realmente es un gana-gana. Gana reconocimiento a su labor, amplía sus horizontes al conocer otras experiencias, crea redes de aprendizaje, ganan sus estudiantes al contar con un profesor inquieto, curioso, creativo e innovador. Y también, y no menos importante, ganará premios. Y por supuesto, gana Uniminuto, porque cuenta con profesores como usted, que se preocupan por hacer su labor con el corazón, por hacer de su labor una vocación. Entonces, profesor de Uniminuto, a participar activamente en este segundo encuentro de experiencias de aula. Recuerde que cuenta con todo el apoyo y el acompañamiento del Centro de Excelencia Docente AEO, Aprendizaje, Enseñanza, Innovación, Oportunidad, Uniminuto. Mejores profesores, mejores estudiantes, mejores profesionales. Bueno, esa es la invitación para que todos los profesores participen con su experiencia de aula este año. El evento lo vamos a hacer 9 y 10 de octubre, la semana de receso, entonces tienen la oportunidad y el tiempo para que puedan acompañarnos con esta experiencia de aula. Y ahora sí vamos a presentarles a Denis, mientras Moni me ayuda a conectarle aquí su computador. Bueno, Denis Hurley, él es profesional en letras de la Universidad de Notre Dame en Estados Unidos, supervisor experimentado en gestión efectiva de personal del Instituto Australiano de Gestión. Cuenta con 16 años de experiencia nacional e internacional como administrador de equipos humanos y creador de soluciones para problemas complejos y en el desarrollo de aplicaciones y tecnologías emergentes. Actualmente se desempeña como director de tecnologías futuras de Pearson, con sede en Nueva York. En esta misma ciudad también trabajó como gerente de productos de Pearson, fue fundador y presidente de Mobile Mirror, ingeniero técnico senior de Brick Factor y desarrollador web y diseñador gráfico de More Benefits. En Sydney, Australia, laboró como gerente de desarrollo y consultor. Bienvenido de nuevo a Uniminuto, Denis. Welcome. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take this too. Muchas gracias. Buenos días. Thank you very much to Uniminuto for having me here today, and to all of you for coming to hear me, and to everyone who's viewing this from home. So my name is Denis Hurley, and I'm the Director of Future Technologies at Pearson. We have a lot to cover today, so I'm going to try to go fairly slowly. Please take a note if you have a question at the end. We will leave some time for Q&A. So the Future Technologies team at Pearson has been around for about 5 years. And in that time, we have completed over 40 projects and prototypes, ranging from artificial intelligence exploration, virtual reality, augmented reality, adaptive algorithms, quite a broad range. Our focus now has been to analyze everything that we've completed and see where the trends are going in education, as well as helping Pearson adopt some of these technologies. We now have an entire division in Pearson called Pearson Immersive that builds applications for the HoloLens, which is augmented reality, as well as applications for virtual reality. And we have an entire program working in artificial intelligence, specifically machine learning and natural language processing. So we're always looking forward and always learning. What are the intended outcomes today or this morning? Again, we're going to cover a lot, so I'll try not to overwhelm you. And my slides, I promise, don't ordinarily have too much text. So the focus is what I'm saying here. Beginning, we'll talk about why we're here, how we got here, and what it looks like to get into the future. We're going to have a bit of a crash course on emerging technologies, understanding some of the models that are available. We'll discuss what I call the 4 foci of educational technologies that are exponential in their nature. They are WR, which includes virtual reality and augmented reality, biosyncing, which is probably a new word to all of you because I made it up, data science, which includes AI, and human-machine interaction. That includes maker learning and understanding, really, how do we adapt to these changes that are occurring so quickly. We'll have some practical suggestions on how to put this into use. What are some of the challenges that you'll face? What are some of the opportunities? As we know, whenever there's a challenge, there's an opportunity. We'll look at some of the current examples, specifically ones that are available from Pearson, and where we're going, where the technology is developing, how they can work together, and then finally, a recap, some of the reminders. So why does this matter? Well, these changes are occurring. This is a rather famous quote. The horse is here to stay, but the automobile is only a novelty. Now, we know what happened after that. Automobiles took over the world and completely reshaped the landscape. We're seeing another change right now with autonomous vehicles and electric vehicles as well, which will in turn bring an entire new revolution on cities and our entire culture. We can't discount new technologies. This is a review of the iPhone when it was first announced just 10 years ago. Hard to imagine that we didn't really have smartphones. The Android operating system was introduced in the same year. So what I want to point out is this line. The iPhone, which I think is also referring to all smartphones, will not be for everyone. Now, we know that's not the case. There are families in sub-Saharan Africa, they don't have laptops or desktops, but they have an Android phone that they share. So how do we incorporate this technology into the classroom? So this is a rather old piece of technology, the pencil, right? Now, we don't have a pencil room in classrooms. We don't tell our students, okay, let's practice with the pencil and everyone spend a half an hour, walk over to the classroom and pick up your pencils. But for some reason, this is what we still do with technology for the most part. However, these technologies are increasingly part of our everyday lives. I just got an Alexa at home, the Amazon Echo, I should say. And I was doing a lemonade stand with my daughter, and we were trying to calculate what would the price difference be if we were making lemonade from scratch versus buying the prepackaged, selling at a different cost. And I would say to Alexa, what's 7.89 times 3? And I would just use that technology without having to do the math. Now, she knows math, of course, but these technologies are going to be increasingly available, so they should learn how to use them appropriately in their studies as well. Now, this is a saying that I don't always use because some people get a little scared. But if you don't want to embrace technology, then you just have to wait for technology to embrace you. Now, the point is, not everything is inevitable, but most of these technologies are probably going to have significant impact. Now, your students are largely using these technologies, as I mentioned, in their day-to-day lives. We all have heard of Google Glass, which came out about 5 years ago now, didn't have too much success. However, Snap, which is how Snapchat was rebranded, has these smart glasses where students can capture photos and videos and share them instantly across all of their friends' networks. Now, what's important is that these students learn from the examples that you set and what the other adults in their lives set. So we can't ignore these technologies. We can't pretend that they're not there. If we look back at the classrooms that we have today, it's essentially an Edwardian institution. Now, there are some debates about how it came to be, but the classroom setting has not evolved much over time. And this was also, as we see, this is the computer room, very similar to the old classrooms we'd see in the brick schoolhouses. Now, I'm going to read this quote in English, and then I'll let you read it in Spanish as well. I think the English is rather beautiful because of how it was written. Now, Adam Smith has a reputation as being the ultimate capitalist and really pushing forward into the idea of having factory labor. However, he understood the downside to this. Man whose whole life is spent performing a few simple operations, of which the effects to are perhaps always the same or very nearly the same, has no occasion to exert his understanding or to exercise his invention in finding out expedients for removing difficulties which never occur. Now, what that means is we have a workforce of people who are pretty much just working for the weekend or working for a vacation or working for retirement. And that's not a very rewarding way to live. Here's the same quote in Spanish, although I'm sure Jake did a good job translating it. Now, these factories that were full of human workers are going through a change, as we know. They're being replaced by robotics. And we have to understand that students we're teaching today, we're teaching them how to be successful adults, and not just in how they work, but it is an important thing to consider. Now, the reality is, and I'm sorry to get into politics here, but we can't fire the robots. The robots are taking away many jobs, and we can't just say, you're out of here. Now, the upside to this is focusing on, or we need to focus on, what are called by many, or especially the World Economic Forum, 21st century skill sets. Now, there are different ways to break them up into categories, but they're really about being your most human self, really what cannot be automated, what can't be replaced by robotics or artificial intelligence, which again is something that I think would excite Adam Smith, because it means, again, that we can do rewarding work. Okay, now, some of you, I'm sure, have had a bit of fear in your life. What does this mean for me? Am I going to be replaced? So I have a bit of good news for you here. There was a study in 2013 where they analyzed a whole range of occupations to get an estimate on how likely they would be replaced within 2020, not sure the exact year. 47% of US jobs were at risk of being replaced. Now, what does that mean for education administration specifically? Are you going to be replaced by a little robot? Thankfully, totally safe. And a projected growth of 6%. Now, why is it that educators are so unique? I think it really comes down to the fact that you need to be agile and flexible and adaptive. So these robots right now and artificial intelligence are not very good at reading social cues in the classroom. An educator, especially one who's in the classroom, can pick up on that one student who's not quite following along, or one who's getting a little bit bored, can adapt the classroom, can adapt the curriculum. And that's exciting work, and not something that the robot revolution is going to take away anytime soon. Looking backwards and how we got to this moment, and it's important that we learn from the past while we're thinking of the future. We can't control everything. So we can build a path, but people are going to go in the direction that they want to go. We can accommodate them. We can make it a little bit easier. Sometimes you can't fight things that are occurring. Now we're going to move into exponential technologies. Exponential technologies come about largely from what is referred to as Moore's law. The idea that a processing chip increases in speed or doubles in speed approximately every 1.5 years while being halved in price. over time, that means that you're going to have a change that seems relatively slow and then a spike of change compared to linear growth. That's why right now it seems like we're experiencing an overwhelming amount of improvements in technologies, because we're right at that point right now where it's spiking. If we look at the exponential growth curve, it actually contains what are called sigmoidal or S curves. So what we'll have is a moment of time, a few years, where we don't really notice too much change in our culture. I think the last time we saw a significant amount of change was in 2007. That's when Facebook came into popular use, as well as Twitter, as well as iPhone, as I mentioned before, and Android. So there was an explosion of social media and people having supercomputers in their pockets. So what has been happening in the past 10 years? Now, technology has been advancing, but it's mostly been out of sight. Virtual reality, facial recognition, artificial intelligence, all of these things have been developed, but the real magic happens when they come into use together. We'll get into that a little bit now and a little bit later on, but that's what's happening now, is that they're starting to be used, integrated with each other. All of these devices originally added up to costing over $1 million US when they were released. You now have this power in your pocket. This is a photo of Thomas Jefferson's library, which he was very proud of. When he was a young man, his library burned down, and he decided to build the biggest one he possibly could. And it is said that he contained in his library all of the known knowledge in the Western world. Now this exists on the cloud. All of it accessible instantly. How did we get here? Again, when we try to think, what was life like before the smartphone? It's kind of hard to imagine, right? But I'm sure many of you, like me, were resisting the technology. I'm not gonna get a smartphone. I don't need that. I have a flip phone. All I need is to get my phone calls, maybe a couple of texts. Eventually we say, okay, everybody's using it. You start to realize the advantage of it, and then you just expect it. You can't imagine going without your phone. So understanding some of the trends, because this is where it's tricky. Since you're here today, I believe you understand the importance of adopting new technologies, and it's hard to understand which ones are going to have the most significant impact. So all models are wrong. So we'll admit that right off the bat. None of these are perfect, but some of them are useful. And I'm going to walk through 3 right now, rather briefly, but they're good for you to keep in mind when you're considering if virtual reality is going to have an impact, for example, or brain-computer interfaces in a couple of years' time. This is the futures cone. So the idea is we understand what's going to happen in the future. Now, the farther you look out into the future, likely we know how it's going to work out. Probably the only definite statement is the future will not work out to be what you expect it to be. It will be something different. The intended use is rarely how it actually is used in popular culture. So we may have a preferable outcome, we could have a wildcard scenario, but within a certain range, we have the plausible. So when a new technology is introduced, again, we just want to keep an open mind. We want to see the paths that people start to take with it and adjust accordingly on an ongoing basis. So as I said, the outcome you expect is the least likely to occur. I'm fascinated by Paleo Futurism. I'm not sure if anyone is familiar with this term, but it's looking back at how people, humans in the past, thought we would be in the future. There are a series of French images, Victorian era, as well as some that were big in the 50s. And here's one where we have, I guess, the future of mail, right? Now, of course, email has been mail has been completely revolutionized, but we don't have a postman with a jetpack. The jetpack really didn't turn out to be very feasible. This is one of those French paleofuturist images I mentioned. It's a pretty popular image. You've probably seen this before. Now, one thing I want to point out here, now the wild card with where we are now is wireless. Whenever you look at these images, especially from the Victorian era, there are always wires, nonstop. They couldn't imagine the idea of information being transferred from point A to point B without a physical connection. There's another phenomenon called a techno panic. And a techno panic is, here's an example of one. When trains were in use, people believed going too fast would drive you crazy. There was a rash of fears and panics because they thought there would be fights and total rallies on the rail yards because humans were not meant to go that fast. When we had telephones, there was a panic that evil spirits would enter the house and enter into your ear through the wires that you had in the household. Now, humans fear what they don't understand. Fear is something I'll come back to a few times in the course of this talk. So again, right now we're in a major techno panic, probably the largest of any of our lives, because we don't know what's going to happen with artificial intelligence or robotics. But the least likely outcome is the one that we fear most. Now, here's another one that isn't too far off from where we are right now. Here's a home classroom. That's a little big, a little bulky. It's not quite an iPad, but this boy obviously wants to go play with his friends, but he has to finish his homework on his electronic notebook. Moving on to the next model. This is the Gartner hype cycle. It's been around for about 20 years, and it can be kind of overwhelming. Every summer, they release this spectrum of technologies and predict where it is. In the technology trigger phase, it's something that's brand new. It's just entered into the minds of the early adopters. We have the peak of inflated expectations. So that's when we believe these technologies are going to change the world. Nothing will ever be the same afterwards. We have the drop into the trough of disillusionment. And at this point, we say, we never should have bothered doing any of this at all. A slope of enlightenment and a plateau of productivity when it becomes part of our everyday lives or whatever profession it's being included in. So here's an example of virtual reality on the Gartner hype cycle. Been through a few different phases. It hit the peak around 2007, dropped off, and then the virtual worlds and virtual reality have been split into two separate categories. Now, the final model is the hype progress wave. And I came up with this one myself because what I thought the Gartner hype cycle was missing was how does the progress of the technology, how does that affected, how is it impacted by the hype around it? So rather than just tracking the hype, what are the reactions to it? How do the technologies adapt? So we have the media discovery. This is when, again, like the technology trigger, we start to first understand that this technology is significant. We have the crest, again, similar to the peak of inflated expectations, but this is where it starts to get a little different. After the crash, we have a full reversal in the sort of news and media attention that the technology is going to get. And there's actually a regression in the progress because people have mistook the applications for the technology. They've started misapplying it, and the technology suffers as a result. There's an adjustment phase when it's largely dropped out of the public conversation, dropped from mainstream, and then a rediscovery and a reasoned reconsideration of the technology. So that's the point where we start to understand it's not the technology for technology's sake, but it does have something that will add value. That's not always the case. Sometimes the technology like the jetpack might just drop off and never be used again, or it could actually have lifelong value. One I like to use as an example is gamification. And I'm not sure what the term would be in Spanish, but it's essentially using techniques to increase adoption and use of an application. So things like a social component, having different levels of a gamified experience be a little bit more challenging as you go along. The term gamification was a big buzzword a few years ago, and then it became a bit of a taboo. You didn't use the word gamification. However, the elements, the things that we've learned in gamification are now baked into products that we develop without us even using the terms. We rewards, we include incentives, and those came from the technology or technology trend of gamification. Finally, last bit on this particular model. As I said, sometimes the technology will taper off and sometimes it will continue on and add value. Sometimes these technologies go through multiple waves of progress, multiple iterations. The best example I can think of is virtual reality. Now, virtual reality first came into play before cinema. We had the stereoscopes. So it's a form of virtual reality, two photos side by side, and you can imagine that you were actually in the space, the landscape that's projected. In the 80s and 90s, we had the Virtual Boy, we had other instances of virtual reality. And then with the Oculus Rift and Samsung Gear, obviously we're in the current phase right now. Okay, moving on. And I know I've been talking for a while here, so if you need to stand up and stretch, get the blood going, feel free to do it. No takers? Okay. The four foci of educational technologies. Now, exponential technologies can be grouped into several different types of categories. I think for the sake of education, the four that make the most sense. So mixed reality is the merging of the real world and the virtual world to create a new world in which virtual and physical objects can interact. Now, there's a lot of confusion around the term mixed reality. You'll hear people use VR, AR, MR, XR, IR, and DR. A lot of these are just branding things, and it's a little bit unfortunate because it's a rather confusing technology to understand in the first place. What I'll use is this continuum model that Paul Milgrom designed in 1994. He was a professor in the University of Toronto. I actually got him on the phone about a year ago, and I said, "You're the one who coined this term. Here's my understanding of it. What do you think?" And he kind of cleared it up. Now, that's not going to help when Microsoft is pushing the word mixed reality as a very specific type of augmented reality, but enough of that. On the far end of the spectrum, we have the real world. Now, any bit of digital interaction is a form of a tangible user interface. We've been using those from day one. So that includes a screen, a mouse, a keyboard, anything at all that changes digital information from the physical world. Moving across the spectrum, we have spatial augmented reality. You'll see this often in museums or in tourist centers where they'll project and you can interact. This photo here is at the Museum of Natural History in New York, where they had an exhibit showing Superstorm Sandy, which was 5 years ago in New York, had a tremendous impact on the city. So it was the entire layout of the 5 boroughs, and you could see on Manhattan where the water came up and the visitors could actually interact with the map. See-through augmented reality. Now this is a screenshot from the Microsoft HoloLens. So this is when you wear a device and you're looking at a physical space, so you can still see your physical space around you, but the digital objects are superimposed on top of it. Good example of see-through AR is Pokemon Go. That's probably the best known example. Semi-immersive virtual reality. Now that is one, it's a little bit high cost, so we haven't seen it in use as much, but it's more of a virtual environment, but you still have a physical interface with it. And at the end here, truly immersive virtual reality means that you have no awareness of your physical surroundings. If you've tried virtual reality before, you've probably had that experience where you've lost your sense of space. You can, if you're playing a game where it's scary, you'll find yourself screaming and pulling it off and realizing you're safe at home. So that's where you have almost no awareness of your physical surrounding, but you're fully immersed in the virtual space. Now, there are different educational uses of these technologies. They have value and they have drawbacks. So if I were using see-through augmented reality, let's say, and many people predict within a few years' time, they'll be in glasses just like this. So we'll be able to have augmented reality projected into space. Now, again, when I talk about these things, it seems like science fiction, but 10 years ago, none of us had smartphones. It'll come quicker than you think. So in this instance, and this is just a mock-up, if I were, say, in Sweden, I could be prompted based on the device knowing that I'm in Sweden, that it's nighttime. Here are some things that you might want to say in Swedish. Now, in a virtual world, it doesn't matter if I'm in Sweden or if I'm in Bogotá or I'm in New York. And that virtual world can be completely controlled. So you can imagine going into a virtual cafe or restaurant and interact with a virtual component. Now, one of the advantages here is that the virtual world can react to what you're saying and doing. So every interaction is data. So that's something to remember. So we can add artificial intelligence components to everything that happens in a virtual space. The Gutenberg press, pretty good. Had a significant amount of impact on our daily lives, right? But you can't interact with it. Our minds are very good at filling in negative space. And this is why we're good, we can use virtual reality for advantageous purposes in education, because we can actually trick our brains into believing things are real. Educational foci of exponential technology, and this is biosyncing. Now, I was hesitant to come up with a new word, but I really couldn't find anything that got at what I was trying to explain. This came about when I first got my Apple Watch. I've been running for about 20 years, but when I had the Apple Watch, I could see my heart rate as I was running in real time. And I noticed that my heart rate was way too high. I was not getting any benefit, and it was actually dangerous. So I slowed myself down, started running at a slower pace. And over time, just a couple of months, I was back to running that faster pace, but at a much healthier heart rate beat. Now, it helped me tremendously. I wound up running the marathon just about a year after that. What's significant is I was getting data about my body that I could not know as I was running, even if I tried to measure my heart rate. And the reaction that I had didn't take conscious effort. I saw the data and I knew to slow down. Now, that's a very basic example of biosyncing, but it's a good one, and there are other examples for education that I'll get into. So it's when a human and a machine are in a reactive performance augmenting loop. So some examples of the communication. They go both ways. So from the feedback we're getting from the machine, we could get nudges. So that's if you have a smartwatch, it may prompt you, tell you you've been sitting for an hour, you should get up and walk around a little bit. You can get the raw data, adapted information, and we don't really know where it's going to progress from this point. I think a lot of this is going to be defined by the technology itself. There is a technology called TDCS, transcranial direct current stimulation, that people have been experimenting with, where you shoot electrical impulses into specific parts of your brain in order to increase educational performance and academic performance. I tried it once and I didn't like it. It's a little sketchy right now, and I wouldn't recommend doing it. Oh, I'm sorry. Now, in the other direction, these technologies are facial recognition, eye tracking, gestures. So they could be conscious, controlled interactions, or they could be unconscious. So it could be detecting that you're bored or that you are confused. And then the technology can adapt in real time. So we actually came up with a prototype where an online learning course, and all these digital devices have cameras on them. So as long as we can get past that fear of privacy, we can interact with the person, with the learner, and understand, okay, this person is confused. Let's prompt them with a few questions and see if we can adjust what we're teaching them at the moment. So the foundations of biosyncing are in movement, sleep, and nutrition. Those are the three. We've made the most progress so far with movement because it's pretty easy to track your heart rate. And when you're moving around, we all have gyroscopes on us right now. Sleep is a little trickier because you really need to have an fMRI. I've experimented with a few and they're not quite up to snuff. And finally, nutrition, which is about the calories that you're eating and the vitamins and minerals that you're consuming. And again, that's a little more challenging because right now it requires you to input that data yourself, which is cumbersome. And most people are not going to do that because, again, for it to be successful, it has to be something you do without too much effort, something that's second nature. However, we have made a lot of progress. This is a photo of the Nike Plus, which came out in 2005. So it's before the smartphone. You put it up, connected it to your iPod, and you put a little thing in your shoe. And as you ran, it could track how far you were running and give you encouragement. There still is a Nike Plus app, and it's pretty good. But this one now can detect when you stop automatically, stop your run, can show you what your heart rate has been, what the elevation is. And there are yoga apps as well. And the health space has really been making a lot of progress. So in terms of facial recognition, BCI, this is the mode of insight. Not sure if anyone is familiar with that, but these are EEG technologies. So we have brain waves that actually escape through the scalp that we can use to determine focus and adjust accordingly as well. We developed a prototype years ago using the Samsung Gear. And this was a precursor to the Apple Watch. So we asked these students, prompted them 3 times a day to input how they felt, if they were tired, if they were sleeping well, how they were eating. And we tracked it along with their academic performance. Because we're understanding more and more now that your physical state has a direct relation on your academic performance and how you're learning. So we want to encourage students, and this is why I was saying if you're getting a little bored or tired, to stand up and stretch, because it helps your brain really absorb new information when it's in a healthier state. We visualized the data, and again, this was just a prototype, so this wasn't something we made available, but the idea here was to try to understand, can we come up with a product to help detect if there's a student who's experiencing some problems and then encourage them to seek solutions to improve their performance in school. Moving on to artificial intelligence. Now, AI enables computers to make a decision normally made by humans, and it can help make learning tools more efficient, flexible, and inclusive. Right off the bat, I want to remind everyone that AI is not robotics. AI ordinarily does not have a physical manifestation. It can be added to a physical device, but mostly it's happening in programs and algorithms running in the background. This is another prototype idea that we had that we didn't build, just to give you an idea of how powerful AI can be. Earlier, I mentioned the smartphone really is for everybody. In sub-Saharan Africa, we have a bit of a problem where students, learners around 5th grade drop out of school because they need to help with chores at home. Now, these families do have smartphones, and they do want their children to continue to learn, but they also need them to help with chores at home. What happens is these students, they go home, they're out of the classroom, and their English language skills begin to slip. Can we correct that? We can use their smartphone and prompt them with discussion tools through an AI interface about whatever interests them. If it's poetry, if it's government, politics, football, you name it. And again, this is just a prototype, this is just an idea, but I'm using it as an example to show that we can engage people all over the world with this technology and improve learner outcomes. And finally, and I think this is probably the most important of the 4, it includes quite a bit of technologies, and it's about overcoming fear, largely. Human-machine interaction management. So it's about how to manage changes and gain those 21st century skills that we mentioned earlier. I don't know if anyone's seen this before, but I like it. All right, now there's a saying, Edward R. Murrow, he was an American journalist and a fantastic journalist, but he said, remember, we are not descended of fearful men. I disagree with him because the fearful men stayed inside the cave and the fearless ones went out and got eaten by bears. So this is why I think so many people are scared of taking chances, scared of new technologies. 21st century skills, again, it's about developing critical thinking. It's about encouraging your students to take chances, to learn how to be flexible, to learn how to be adaptive. Heather McGowan, who's a mine, she's based in Boston. I recommend checking out some of her writings. Has come up with a new model of education. Education in the old form was about a destination. It was about training for that particular skill, to work in a company, to work in a factory. Learning is continuous. It's an ongoing basis. Framing, applying, experimenting, assessing. We're in this age right now where we're moving from acquiring skill and knowledge to agility, creativity, and adaptivity. And finally, we've moved from, in the corporate environment, you had the education, the career, and retirement, to continuous learning, lifelong learning, and really a lifetime of enjoyable work, ideally, where you're learning, you're engaging, and you remain engaged throughout your entire life. It's a big jump from what we have in classrooms today. Interact with machines. Garry Kasparov, who's the world chess champion in 1997, lost to Deep Blue. That was an AI component. Now, again, AI was science fiction for decades. There's no way anybody could beat, any machine could beat a human at chess. It requires creativity, it requires flexibility, adaptivity, and here we go. Deep Blue beat Garry Kasparov. Now, Garry Kasparov, he took it in stride, and he came up with a new form of chess called freeform chess or centaur chess. And what this enables people to do is work in teams, either with humans or with machines, or just set up autonomous machines and compete. That's what he calls a centaur. The centaur is a combination of the machine and the human, similar to a cyborg. Now, the winners, the global champions in centaur chess are almost always a combination of human and machine. Ingenuity, human creativity, and the algorithms powered by a machine. The machines don't win on their own. They need the humans to help. The humans don't win on their own. They need the machines to help. Now, when we use the term centaur, I don't know how familiar everyone is with Greek mythology, but centaurs have a tendency to be a little wild. So I like to think of Chiron, who is an educator himself. Here he is teaching Achilles. So just to give a little bit of my background, I didn't explain in the beginning because I thought this was a better time to do it. I'm a bit of a maker myself. I went to school for film production. Never actually taken a computer class in a classroom setting because when I came back to New York, I tried to make it in film for about a year and it didn't work out. So I learned graphic design, and this was before the bubble burst, and I got a job at a startup company. And my friends there helped me learn programming. So I became a programmer in SQL, VB6 at the time, and built a security portal for an employee benefits platform. It got pretty successful, became popular in Australia, so I moved there. I started managing people, was there for a few years, came back, joined a friend's startup company, ran my own startup company where I learned about mobile technologies, location-based services. So I failed a lot. I didn't know what I was doing. I just had to figure it out, but that's the only way to learn. Excuse me. Pearson, what they were looking for is someone who had a mix of corporate experience and startup experience. So I was able to use that lifelong learning process to find this position. And I think it's important for everyone to continue to do that, or otherwise you get stuck in a bit of a rut. I was in a Lyft car in San Diego just a couple of weeks ago, and the driver was a man, I believe in his 60s. And I asked him, what did he do for a living? And he said he worked in technology for decades. He worked for IBM, and his job kept getting replaced by algorithms. So he kept upskilling himself, but he couldn't keep up with it. By the time he took another course, that was no longer what was needed in the workforce. So I said, well, what are you doing now? And he said, I'm going to school to be a therapist, which again is something that is a very human skill. We have to be careful in education that we're not preparing for the last war. That's a saying that heard used for the military, that we imagine the previous war, but the games are changing always. So when it comes to STEM education, I believe there are some instances where we use it just a way of teaching coders, but coding can be a way of exploration, of creativity. You've probably heard STEAM, which adds in the artistic component as well. So that creative thinking is, I think, very important when we're using maker learning. Here's a photo of the type of machine I used to cut film on in the 90s. Not the physical, tangible component. Now we think nobody wants to do this anymore. However, the technology, the digital trend has been a bit of a fad in terms of the over-reliance on it. Kids today, from what I've seen, really value the physical component. My daughter with what turned out to be her favorite Christmas present, a record player. Couldn't imagine it. She has access to every song ever recorded at any time from her iPad. But she puts on Taylor Swift Red every day and puts it on repeat. It's that physical component, you know. We have a piano at home that I can't even play, but she likes to play with it in the typewriter. So there's value in that. There's value in that exploration. That's all part of maker learning. With its foundation in constructivism, modern maker learning helps students learn practical 21st century skills by creating and peer-to-peer knowledge sharing. Some examples of maker learning: you can build fashion kits, robotics, 3D printing. Now, maker was another term very popular about 5 years ago, and you don't hear it too often. But again, it's just become part of the culture. This is the maker map. Don't know if Bogotá is on it, but this is just New York. These are all maker spaces where people, largely kids, sometimes adults, they're not getting courses that they want in their classroom setting, so they're going elsewhere to get that need. This is a form of maker learning, really, building a lemonade stand. But this doesn't have any digital component. However, it's a big ask to put together a lemonade stand, to have someone sit outside. It's a big endeavor. It's fun to do, but you can't do it all the time. This is where digital technologies can add some value. My daughter again, sorry, she's my little human experiment. This is an application called the Osmo. It's an iPad app. And if anyone here has a child or knows anyone with a child around the age of 6 to 10, I highly recommend it. I don't get any. But all it is an interface between the virtual and physical world. It's a mirror that goes on top of the iPad, and then the children put physical devices in front of it, and it picks it up. So this is kind of like a lemonade stand app. It's a pizza game. And in the game itself, people come in and they order pizza. They want pepperoni, they want fish, and you have to put these together. Now, if you put too much food on it, your costs go up. If you put too little food on it, you get a bad Yelp review. Not sure what you use in Colombia, but you get a better review online and let fewer people come in to order pizza. Much easier to set up. It's actually a social tool, so kids usually play this with other kids. It's not something that's just in solitary, fortunately. And this is how kids are thinking these days. It's not just about the physical or the digital. I love this ad from a Swedish company, or Finland, I'm sorry. Hello Ruby, it's a programming site. You see her imaginary friends here? She has a snow leopard, I think, and she has a robot and a penguin, but she's doing in sidewalk chalk on top of an iPad app. We don't have to lose the sense of the physical and the material. We can actually use them as tools. How do we all of these technologies into practice? Fear. This is a real challenge you're going to have to overcome. I think in my years in this role, the two terms that I heard the most when talking about these technologies is "that's scary." I still hear it quite a bit. Over time, we get to understand what these technologies mean, and we fear them less. especially when they involve children though. And that's understandable because we don't always know the full long-term impact of the technologies. But just to put it in some perspective, Socrates believed that the written word would bring about the end of human civilization. That was it, he said. No one, because up until that time, everyone had to memorize their stories. And once it was the written word, the magic was gone. Today, we have Stephen Hawking. Now, he's not a data scientist, brilliant guy, but he doesn't understand artificial intelligence. I don't think I understand it more than he does, but he's afraid of it. And he says humans are going to be wiped off the face of the earth. Now, just because he says that, people think it must be the case because Stephen Hawking is saying it. But again, let's look at what Socrates said. The word would be the end of civilization. So we have to take it with a grain of salt. With that grain of salt, I like the term mindful skepticism. Skepticism is always good because these technologies will not always add value, but they could have some serious, tremendous, life-changing impact on lives. You have to ensure that the benefits outweigh the costs. They are increased with accessibility, of course. Now, the risk is worth it because you may have failures, and usually you're forgiven for your failures. Your successes can have a huge impact on lives. And progress really is inevitable. You know, we've had Luddites in the past who destroyed the factories because they didn't want the factories coming to play, but eventually they did. So we can't stop it no matter how hard we try. Another thing we have to be careful of is the hype. There's a lot of hype around these technologies, and that is because they are promoting it. They're trying to make a sale. So you have to be critical when you're analyzing these things. Companies with a vested interest will overpromise. You have to be careful about technology for technology's sake. And if you remember the Gartner hype cycle, the higher the peak of inflated expectations, the deeper trough of disillusionment. Now, the image I have right here is what I call 3D heart syndrome. I see a lot of startup companies demoing their product to me very frequently. The first thing they show me is a 3D heart. And that's neat at first. I don't know if anyone here has seen an augmented reality application, but it's almost always a 3D heart and the next thing is a dinosaur. That's cool, but what value does it add? And a kid is going to take that as a given at this point. Again, you resist, you accept, and you expect. There's nothing interesting about a 3D heart to a 5-year-old who has seen it since the time they were born. Now, if you can interact with it, if there's especially in a see-through AR component and you can move things around, that adds some value. But the technology at sake, that wow factor, is not going to get you anywhere. Even Pikachu. So the opportunity, this can be overwhelming and it can seem like there are high costs, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But you can remember that you can start small and you can build up, you can experiment, you can collaborate. There's another great quote, I forget who said it, that if I have an apple and you have an apple and I give you my apple, you give me your apple, we each only have one apple. If I have an idea and you have an idea, and we each give each other the ideas, we each have 2 ideas. So collaboration, forums like this, that is incredibly important. Fail, learn, people. You can understand the limitations, what the opportunities are. And I believe we're living in an age of abundance right now. So if you think about an apple tree, once all the apples that were reachable have been picked, some people might think, we're out of apples. We have no more apples that we can pick. But all you really need to do is add a ladder to it. That little bit of technology means that you can access so much more. There are trade-offs. So some technologies cost quite a bit of money. Others are very affordable. This is the Google Cardboard. Now, when it was released at the Google I/O, people thought it was a joke. A piece of cardboard, you put your Android device into it and you see virtual reality. Who's going to want to do that? A friend of mine is an educator in Chinatown in New York. Now, it's a very high poverty school, and these kids barely leave that neighborhood. This is an area of Manhattan, and the southern tip is just about a mile away. They do a class trip down there. They take the subway, and it's a green space, and they think they're in the country. Google came to the classroom. They loaned out Android devices and Google Cardboard. Now, again, that relies on having a Wi-Fi connectivity, and these Android devices were only lent to them. But they went to Rome. They went to the pyramids. And they just did it for a few minutes, but then they put the phones down, they put the cardboard down, and they had conversations with the teacher, with the students. And it was not exactly the same as going to Rome or going to the pyramids, but it was an experience that got them a lot closer to it than many of them ever will have in their real life. Another thing to consider, and another anecdote, I was having a conversation with somebody about using technology in education, and she said, well, most people only have a smartphone. And
teléfono inteligente y no se puede hacer mucho con un teléfono inteligente. Un teléfono inteligente es una supercomputadora. Todas estas tecnologías a las que tenemos acceso en el bolsillo, un acelerómetro, tenemos un GPS, cámara, receptores de audio, tenemos pantallas táctiles y tenemos cornetas. Cuando vemos una tecnología de la que podemos aprovechar en una aplicación que puede aprovecharse de la tecnología que ya es común, es un gran ejemplo de algo que utilizamos. No sé cuán común sea esto en las escuelas, pero tenemos mucho esto en Estados Unidos, donde los estudiantes traen su iPad o su teléfono Android y lo tienen en la casa porque las escuelas no pueden comprarlo. Por supuesto, hay retos con eso también, el manejar la distracción. Okay. Por ejemplo, ahorita que tenemos el fidget spinner, y lo están vendiendo en todos lados. Okay. Es para la gente que es quisquillosa. Entonces, al ver el desarrollo reciente, Pearson Tell, esto es una aplicación para aprender idiomas que utiliza inteligencia artificial y se adapta al tiempo real y hace predicciones si el estudiante que creemos va a tener un reto al aprender resultados. Otro ejemplo. Esto es una aplicación inmersiva para tecnología virtual, y cuando estamos entrenando a los trabajadores en el metro, entonces experimentan esto en realidad virtual, ven dónde están los componentes estructurales del metro, y cuando están en el espacio físico real, cuando están en el metro, pueden recordar ese componente físico, aunque no esté hecho. Ese teléfono me está interviniendo. Entonces tenemos otra aplicación de lentes. Cuando se entrenan a los ingenieros del ejército, si están preparados para montar una cerca para una situación de emergencia, por ejemplo, el entrenamiento requiere días de trabajo, el salir y poner un poste en la tierra. En Holanda se hace en minutos. Yo no tengo un Holland. Este señor, por favor, me lo pueden mover de ahí, que me está interfiriendo. Disculpen. Tenemos una cerca, la ponemos en un poste. Lo que sucede es con un lente, con HoloLens, es que ese objeto virtual se queda en el espacio físico. Eso significa cuando su colega o cuando su gerente llega al espacio físico y se pone un holograma, se puede ver esa cerca exactamente donde él la puso. Si uno va y regresa una semana después, aún está esa cerca allí. Entonces, lo que significa es que podemos tener, en teoría, una gran cantidad de información virtual que está imbuida en todo el espacio físico. Este entrenamiento, que generalmente toma semanas o días, se puede hacer en horas. El teléfono de él se me mete aquí. Estamos en la Universidad de Case Western. Tienen un sitio de entrenamiento donde no van a tener cadáveres. Están viendo cómo pueden evitar tener cadáveres en el futuro, porque es muy caro, porque muchas veces la gente dona su cuerpo, pero en el HoloLens pueden crear un cuerpo virtual e interactuar con él. Y la persona que lo diseñó dijo, cuando uno opera en un humano, esperemos que ese humano esté vivo. ¿ok? Es distinto a un cadáver, entonces hay ventajas. De nuevo, eso está disponible en trade-off. No tenemos esa depreciación del cuerpo humano cuando están trabajando en el HoloLens, pero si uno comete un error puede volver a empezar. Si uno está cortando una rana y los estudiantes destruyen la rana, ya no lo pueden volver a hacer. En un HoloLens, como ese espacio de realidad virtual o aumentada, entonces estimula que la gente cometa errores porque así es como se aprende. Otra ventaja, aquí tenemos 10 individuos que todos usan HoloLens y el profesor, frente a nosotros en un gran espacio, tenemos una columna vertebral humana y él está enseñando todo lo que tiene que ver con la columna humana. Entonces él nos habla de la columna y todo el mundo está involucrado y está aprendiendo, y después de 10 minutos nos quitamos los aparatos y seguimos involucrados, pero también seguimos moviéndonos alrededor y apuntando a diferentes sitios en la columna, porque era la retención que teníamos en nuestra mente, por tener un gran valor, porque teníamos un sentido de un objeto físico que no habríamos tenido al mirar un papel o una pantalla o en un modelo en 3D en una pantalla. Otra aplicación para HoloLens, usamos una tecnología nueva para capturar video. Cuando entrenamos a las enfermeras en cómo interactuar con pacientes, eso requiere un actor que venga y la enfermera tiene una interacción con ese actor y es observada por su profesor. Y en este caso, nosotros grabamos al actor y la estudiante de enfermería puede interactuar, puede ver el actor real, y es el mismo actor para cada estudiante de enfermería, y es gran valor porque no tenemos una variable en cuanto a estudiante A que tuvo una experiencia distinta con otro actor. Y cada interacción que tenemos, de nuevo, son datos y se puede utilizar de nuevo incluso en retroalimentación en tiempo real. Entonces, mirando hacia adelante, ¿hacia dónde vamos? Cuando hablamos de realidad virtual y ciertas formas de realidad aumentada, se ha diseñado ciertas cosas para experiencias singulares. Ahora, sabemos que los humanos son criaturas sociales. El aprendizaje es un acto social, y Microsoft casi inmediatamente después que lanzaron el HoloLens empezaron a trabajar en la partición en Holo, y lo que significa es que se puede tener una persona virtual en su espacio físico para interactuar. Entonces, imagínense, Skype sale de ahí, pero imagínense tener una reunión como en el cónsul Jedi. Es una gran ventaja. Ahora, antes hablé de que cuando sucede la magia, cuando uno combina muchas tecnologías. Otro ejemplo es el combinar realidad mezclada. Es combinar la realidad mezclada, es la conciencia contextual espacial y los medios situados. Los medios situados es un término que se utiliza para definir los datos virtuales que existen en un espacio físico. Entonces, levantando la mano, ¿cuántos de ustedes jugaron Pokémon Go? Nadie. Una persona. Ok. Yo tengo que explicarles. Ok. Yo esperaba que aquí era donde íbamos a tener una experiencia común todos. Pokémon Go, como funcionaba el juego, en su teléfono uno ve donde las criaturas estaban en el espacio y era un mapa. Entonces, si uno estaba en su ciudad, entonces dirán que estaban a una cuadra. Entonces uno corría a esa cuadra y trataba de capturarlo. Ahora, esa criatura, digamos el Pikachu, está en ese espacio, es el mismo Pikachu para mí, para ti y para todos los demás que estaban jugando ese mismo juego. Entonces, de nuevo, este es un juego, Pokémon Go, pero es una experiencia de aprendizaje, pero no puede agregar un pedazo de historia. Y si uno está aquí en Bogotá, yo como explorador puedo caminar y puedo aprender cómo se veía un edificio en particular hace 20 años, 100 años atrás, y cómo era la gente en ese momento, y uno puede vivir ese espacio. Y el otro componente que es importante es la conciencia contextual espacial. Eso significa que sabe de mí, sabe en qué me interesa y qué quiero hacer y dónde estoy en el mundo. Entonces, sabe que es hora de almuerzo y que tengo mucha hambre y que me gustan las arepas, y entonces me muestra un sitio fantástico para aprender sobre la historia de la arepa. Entonces, la convergencia, eso es una combinación de realidad mezclada, inteligencia artificial y biosincronización, y es muy emocionante pensándolo desde el punto de vista educacional. Quiero que se imaginen un entrenamiento, una experiencia de emergencia de medicina. No tienen que imaginarse solamente entrenamiento de medicina de emergencias, pero uno está inmerso en un hospital virtual. Y cómo uno reacciona en ese espacio se puede detectar. Cuál es su latido, usted está nervioso, calmado. Uno puede tener el espacio donde está reaccionar en tiempo real. Si uno está muy nervioso, la temperatura del espacio puede bajar. Si uno quiere que la situación sea un poco más retadora, entonces quizás subamos el nivel de ruido. Y todas estas cosas son situaciones que pueden suceder en tiempo real si uno está en una sala de operaciones. El humano virtual al que uno está operando, con el que uno interactúa, puede responder no solo basado en las emociones que usted aprendió de un texto, sino el tono de voz suyo. Eso es algo que, como explicamos antes, es el reconocimiento de voz facial. Eso puede pasar si uno va, por ejemplo, está en un trauma y uno puede sobrevivir. Entonces, para recordarles, y les voy a dejar con esta imagen de Jeopardy, Watson. Eso fue hace como 10 años después de que Gary Kasparov perdió contra Deep Blue. Watson estuvo en Jeopardy jugando a los 2 mejores campeones de todos los tiempos de Jeopardy. Entonces, cosas para recordar. En cuanto a tecnología exponencial de educación, tecnología mezclada, biosincronización, inteligencia artificial y una interacción humano-maquinaria, traten de evitar el miedo. Eso va a pasar naturalmente, pero el futuro está abrazando las posibilidades. Escepticismo mental. No se abran tanto mentalmente, porque quizás sea algo que no agregue valor, puede ser crítico. Es la mentalidad de centauro, que es el abrazar que lo hace más humano y el utilizar que hace a una computadora tan valiosa. Pueden aprender del pasado mientras piensan en el futuro, y también pueden aprender de otras industrias. Yo no entré mucho en este ejemplo, pero una cosa que hago es que generalmente voy a conferencias para otras industrias fuera de educación. Por ejemplo, la conferencia de neurojuegos en San Francisco, que suena muy ciencia ficción, y lo era, pero la idea de los neurojuegos es utilizar su mente para controlar los juegos, y ahí es donde realmente me expuse a interfaces de computadoras, jugaba juegos y me enfocaba y podía competir con otro jugador, y quien se enfocara mejor ganaba el juego. Después de esta conferencia, compré uno de estos aparatos y, por supuesto, llegué a la casa, se lo di a mi hija, que tenía 5 años en el momento, y le dije: mi amor, esta pantalla frente a ti, cuando te enfocas, van a ver fuegos artificiales. Y ella dijo: ¿cómo que me enfoque? ¿Qué significa enfocarme? ¿Cómo se describe enfocarse? No tenemos una reacción tangible a enfocarse como es, por ejemplo, empujar una bola. Con este juego, lo que le daba al aprendiz era una representación visual del enfoque. Con el tiempo, y esto ha ayudado mucho a la gente que no puede, que tiene problemas de atención, eso lo ayuda a enfocarse porque uno puede ver cómo se siente y uno se familiariza con ello. Eso es algo que se desarrolló para juegos y para la milicia. Y había un neurocientífico allí que desarrolló un aparato para DARPA, que es la milicia americana, y lo que él hizo fue que puso una luz al final de un rifle de francotirador y lo usó en el campo de entrenamiento y midió las ondas mentales. Y entonces siempre volvieron a mandar a la misma gente y decían, no disparen hasta que haya esa luz y esa luz se apague al final del rifle. Y trataron de usarlo en ejercicios, pero muchas de estas cosas se utilizaban para la milicia y para el entretenimiento. Y lo que pudieron hacer era detectar el estado mental de la persona, ¿okay? Y que si iba a disparar bien o no. Entonces, cuando el francotirador estaba entrenando de nuevo, notaban que 80% de aumento en desempeño porque podían detectar dónde estaba, cuál era el estado mental y reaccionar de acuerdo a ello. Entonces podemos crear un aparato donde un aprendiz que está estudiando se le estimula a decir, usted no está tan enfocado, tiene que caminar, tomarse una taza de té. Hay otras industrias que se usan para inspiración. Y finalmente, recuerden, no les dé mucho miedo, empiecen en pequeño y pueden escalar. ¿Ok?
Gracias, Denis. Bueno, vamos a abrir la sesión de preguntas. Si no tienen alguna pregunta, por favor, ¿no les da miedo la tecnología?
No sean tímidos.
¿Alguien?
I'm going to ask the question. In my case, I'm in charge of measuring and assessing subjects, and a lot of them have to do, especially with of course, with math formulation. And of course, you have given us a lot of information of application of math. There are a lot of programs supporting from statistics. What other apps or what other support from education or this biosyncing or other types of alternatives could you suggest, taking into account that this type of alternatives, or more exactly the subjects that have to do with math, tend to be very static in terms of education and learning and teaching? Gracias. I told you I would drive you nuts. Me perdí el principio, pero creo que oí suficiente. Hay que asegurarse, quiero asegurarme que entendí bien. Tú quieres hacer que la matemática sea más, involucre más a la gente. Y eso es una pregunta muy común. Y yo creo que Maker Learning es un sitio muy bueno para hacerlo. ¿Cuál es el rango de edades? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Entonces, es bastante avanzado. Ha habido desarrollo en realidad virtual para entender data, porque las matemáticas, estadística, si nos metemos en un espacio muy hondo, estamos limitados en cómo podemos involucrarnos con ello. No sé los nombres de todas ellas, pero creo que la mayoría se han desarrollado de manera de prototipo, pero uno puede imbuirse en un modelo y lo he considerado para mi ciclo porque, de nuevo, hay más oportunidades en un espacio virtual para interactuar e involucrarse. La realidad virtual es el sitio para comenzar. Uno puede encontrar modelos que se pueden utilizar incluso en el teléfono inteligente. A esa edad yo creo que microlearning quizás sería un poco no progresiva, no suficientemente progresivo, es más para física. Disculpen, pero no lo oigo a él, no escucho la pregunta. It's one of the subjects that I have difficulty with. One of the subjects that I have difficulty with is because the kids have to apply statistic models to measure human behavior. They have to gather a lot of information and analyze it, but a lot of times they don't understand the base process. What you are suggesting in virtual reality and visual management of a lot of data sounds interesting. Specifically, we are teaching them to develop scales, allowing them to measure human behavior, cognition, learning, skills, but on top of that, to be trustable and valid. Eso sí lo entendí. Creo que si buscan específicamente a las aplicaciones en las compañías, mira iMotion. ¿Has escuchado hablar de iMotion? El reto cuando uno está lidiando con biosincronización, como dije, cada interacción es data. En incrementos, todo lo que hacemos va a ser capturados en el mundo virtual. No se asusten, pero la idea de buscar una conexión Wi-Fi va a ser antiquísima. Es como usar un módem de antes. Lo que significa es que es una gran cantidad de data. Entonces usamos, por ejemplo, reconocimiento de voz, de ondas cerebrales, de cara, todo eso utilizado individualmente es muchísimo para procesar, pero lo que tenemos que hacer es dilucidar cómo utilizarlos todos de una vez. Y iMotion es una aplicación que lleva toda esta información y la traduce. De nuevo, estas tecnologías se desarrollan para otras industrias primero. Entonces, iMotion se usa más que todo para mercadeo. Antes de un gran juego en televisión, la compañía va a llevar diferentes versiones de un comercial en un sitio como ese donde hay gente y la gente simplemente se reconoce cada cara. Y las mujeres reaccionaron así, los hombres reaccionaron así, la gente de tal edad reaccionó de esa forma. Y ellos pueden traducirlo al público. Y espero que sea más común para educación. En ese momento las aplicaciones son muchísimas. Y eso es lo que estamos esperando para el futuro. In case of motion reading, let's say that the trials are trustable and valid because devices are programmed to read exactly what's going on. But in our case, to measure processing with view, for example, the visual aspect, the emotional aspect, facial recognition, is just part of measurement. It's of course important, but in our case, it is to measure personality, for example. Suena como algo muy retador. Sí tenemos psicomotriz, expertos, en Pearson lo usamos, pero tenemos un grupo de personas que nosotros lo llamamos nuestros campeones, y ellos son los expertos en educación. Yo soy el de tecnología y ellos son la parte educativa. Y ellos les ha interesado mucho en montar este tipo de cosas. Exactamente. No tengo la respuesta para ti, pero si quieres enviarme un correo o si me sigues en Twitter, yo voy a tratar de responderte. ¿Está bien?
Muy bien.
Ok.
¿Alguien más quiere preguntarle a Denis? Buenos días. Mi nombre es Elena.
I'm Elena, and my colleagues and I, we work on social communication program in Zipaquirá, and the four of us do coincide, okay, because we live that with our students. It's apathy. I don't know if that's a term, but they don't like to read, to write. We have fallen behind in technology in that aspect. So through your experience and knowledge, how can we use technology so this is also hand in hand, and development and performance goes hand in hand with that?
I think so.
¿Tú quieres mejorar la emoción? Reading competence. Específicamente en escritura. Yeah, it's reading comprehension.
So,
la tecnología específicamente, hay aplicaciones donde el material que uno está leyendo, especialmente si está en formato digital, puede ajustarse al lector individual dependiendo de su nivel de lectura. ¿Eso es lo que tú estás buscando? Our students approximately are between 19 and 23. They use a lot of technology. So our concern is that we shouldn't send them very long text because that's too long for them. They don't like to read, or maybe that's not the way of reading that type of text. So when they are going to write an essay, news, it's very difficult for them to analyze, to read short, to write short text, to understand what they're reading. So it would be to change the role and adapt to technology so that those skills improve. Entiendo. Es distracción digital. Esto es un debate que la gente tiene ahora. Nunca tenemos un momento donde la gente ha leído más de lo que hacemos ahora. Hoy leemos más que nunca, pero es un formato muy diferente. Es en cortos, textos cortos, emails, y ese proceso del formato largo, las distracciones que tenemos es un gran reto. Creo que ahí es cuando vemos la interacción entre máquina y humanos. Creo que la idea de ayudar a que la gente entienda, okay, el apagar las notificaciones en su teléfono. Hay un estudio con monos. Y cuando había una máquina que les daba comida, y cuando el mono apretaba el botón les daban comida, y hubo otro experimento con los mismos monos y la máquina, cuando apretaban el botón a veces les daba comida y a veces no les daba. Y los monos en ese momento empezaban a apretar el botón constantemente porque había esta necesidad, no sé si me va a dar algo o no. Y desafortunadamente, ese es con el surgimiento de medios sociales, es lo que le pasa a la gente. No solamente ese grupo social, pero los adultos siempre están chequeando su teléfono constantemente. Tengo algo. Y creo que tenemos que aprender a cómo mantener nuestro aparato en nuestro bolsillo. Y se trata de la interacción de máquina y humanos, De hecho, hay aplicaciones que apagan las interacciones de su teléfono en ciertas horas del día. Pero como aprender a leer algo largo es algo que es una habilidad que tenemos que estimular. No creo que haya una solución tecnológica, otro que entrenar a la gente de forma que no tengan distracciones, especialmente en meditación. Esa es otra manera de ayudar a la gente para que se enfoquen, y hay tecnologías que lo hacen, pero es enseñar a la gente a disfrutar el momento. Morning. About the people who currently are involved in technology and they know about technology. But there are people can have never had that interaction with technology. How do they focus? El teléfono se me mete aquí, señor. Okay. These people, is there a difference between them, or how can they focus? How can they get involved in the new technology? Accesibilidad es lo que tú estás preguntando. Las Naciones Unidas declararon que la conectividad y el acceso a Internet es un derecho humano básico, como el agua. El acceso al Internet ahora es un derecho humano básico, según las Naciones Unidas. No es un problema que se haya resuelto, pero hay comunidades que no tienen agua limpia, pero tienen acceso a Internet. Y la razón es muy triste, es porque hay un interés corporativo en tener consumidores en estas bases, pero también hay compañías, Pearson es una de ellas, que hace que la información, que el acceso a la información esté más disponible para aquellos que no tienen acceso a ella. Tú estás preguntando específicamente sobre la gente que está lo que se llama, que están al fondo de la pirámide, aquellos que están, sí. De nuevo, las escuelas en muchos países en desarrollo han progresado mucho en conectividad de Internet, pero no es algo, es algo que sigue pasando, pero tenemos que tener mucho cuidado porque la mayoría de la gente arriba va a tener acceso a más y va a ser un problema con la división entre los que tienen y los que no. Creo que es una cuestión de estar conscientes de ellos, de asegurarnos de que tenemos programas que soporten o que mejoren y que realmente cierren ese vacío que hay entre esa brecha. About what you were saying about the handling of cell phones. About 3 months ago, we said that there are more people with, here in Bogotá, people have more access to phones than water. In terms of my class, there are people that are very, very young, 20-year-olds, 18-year-olds in my class, but I also have students who are 30, 35 years old. There is a big technological gap where the kids don't understand or don't use a lot of apps. And students in class are always using cell phones, getting distracted, chatting. And one day I conducted an exercise, and when I said, when we come into the classroom, we'll put cell phones in a box. And the kids, some of them have, heart palpitations. They got anguished, and they got up and said, "I'm sorry, but I can't do this. So give me my cell phone because I know people are calling me." I had to, not to allow so much distraction, I just had to involve certain subjects during class so that they could look at their cell phones and look for certain information so that everybody would get connected on the same subject for 2 minutes, and then we would have a discussion group. But we have problems with generational breach in terms of technology, and also because there are a lot of people here who work during the day, who are not so much connected with a lot of apps, current apps, and there are kids who don't work and they have more time, and also that create gaps in interpretation and advancement in class. So what to do? To unify and close that segregation before consumption. And kids, some people have better machines than others, and they are afraid of being ridiculed or saying, I don't have this app, or what to do there. Ese es un problema muy interesante porque tú tienes una respuesta. Sí. Puede ser divertido. Ella quiere hacer seguimiento a la última pregunta. Good morning, I'm Carolina Ospina, and I learned social communication and graphic design, but the old-fashioned one. And today I have that gap in teaching digitally. I teach digital culture, digital design, digital photography. I'm specialized in digital matters. I had to relearn as a teacher, to be honest. We don't know about everything that we're going to have in the digital era. But answering your question, it's the same with the cell phones. Instead of making it a distraction for us, because it's not a distraction for us, it is a learning and working tool, and as Dennis said, it is a computer for us. So we have to ask teachers close that gap. Whatever we know is absolute truth. No, not at all. And I'm involved in the digital aspects, and I teach about it. Everything that's coming, we have to relearn, and we have to relearn not what we know how to teach, but also how we are going to teach that. For example, I talk to them so that cell phone, iPad, to make it a working tool. We're not going to a photocopy machine. We don't use paper. Everything is downloading an app, so that everything is digital, because we are in a digital culture, and that's the way we move. So we as teachers, we have to withdraw that gap and tell them to turn off their phones. But we have to relearn everything that's new. Apps that a lot of times we don't know are very good for us, and they may be very good. iMotion, the one that you mentioned, is very good. We have I told myself, if I'm going to teach digital culture, I have to update more than I have learned in my schooling, but I have to get involved with their culture. Good morning, I'm Patricia Molar, and I am GBI's director. We are in charge of our students in this first semester. They should handle this digital culture. We've had very small advancements because those are kids who are just getting into the university, 3D modeling and virtual reality, and they love it. We try to get programs that, of course, are free. So could you name programs that are free so that our students deepen in their learning because it is very difficult. A lot of times we find a tool and we use it for a semester, but the volume here is so big, about 2,500, 2,700 students in first semester. By the second semester, we can't use them because it is very expensive. So it would be great if it's possible to tell us some freeware that we could use so that we can talk about augmented reality. ¿Cuál era el rango de edades?
It's about 16, 17 years and 35 years.
Okay.
Esto es otro reto para salones en el rango. La tecnología es cara y realmente muy rápido ya es obsoleta. Entonces el tener un reto con apoyo, porque a veces uno tiene una persona que es un abogado de tecnología y ese individuo tiene todo el conocimiento de esa tecnología y cuando esa persona se va, uno se queda con nada, que uno no sabe usarlo. Hay compañías que proveen recursos, software y hardware y las mantienen actualizadas. Están en Estados Unidos y esencialmente uno está pagando por acceso a lo último. Si uno compra una impresora en 3D en 3 años, ya no vale la pena. Pero si uno la está rentando, entonces uno puede mantenerse al día y nosotros también damos el acceso en cuanto a lo que es gratis en software de realidad virtual, realidad aumentada. Eso se está desarrollando en Unity, que es una plataforma, yo no sé, no sé si es 80% en la industria de los juegos, que es lo que le empuja, pero también es intensiva. Unity es muy pesada, los programas son grandes y entonces quizás se reemplace por una versión web. Y la versión web sería mucho más eficiente en costos y se puede utilizar para modelo de 3D, pero no conozco en este momento nada que sea gratis. De nuevo, si quieren enviarme un correo, definitivamente voy a ver qué encuentro. Tengo una pregunta. Yo quería una reflexión para agregar a lo que ella dijo. Lo que las personas más viejas tratan de evitar y les da miedo la tecnología, pero yo supongo que nosotros como profesores encontramos eso en un salón porque a veces le enseñamos a nuestros estudiantes que nos tienen que temer y en términos de lo que se le da es una emoción que nos da una versión de lo que estamos tratando de enseñar en nuestra clase y para nosotros, por eso no les caemos tan bien a veces. Pero en ese caso, uno de las metas más grandes que tenemos que tener como profesores es llevarnos bien con nuestra clase, generando buenas emociones, emociones positivas como felicidad en lugar de miedo y tristeza porque se frustran y tratan de sentirse tristes después. Y por eso, de hecho, en cuanto a psicología, cuando uno le da miedo, cuando uno se entristece, uno no aprende nada. No es una herramienta para aprender significativamente. Y eso es algo que yo he intentado en mis clases, pero cuando trato de hacer la investigación, yo estaba bajando iEmotion y hemos aplicaciones de emoción, pero el problema es que que no leen grupos de caras o caras en diferentes posiciones. Yo quería saber si quizá ustedes conocen una aplicación o algo que de hecho pueda utilizarse en un salón, no por individuos, porque si uno le dice a un estudiante, ahora quiero que te tomes una foto, eso cambia la emoción. Quería saber si había información. Sí, iMotion no soporta el desarrollo de la tecnología de reconocimiento facial, sino que lo toma como información en cuanto a como gestos y bioreconocimiento. Hay compañías que pueden hacer un salón completo. No estoy seguro. Apple acaba de comprar una hace como un año. Entonces eso les dice que puede venir por ahí. Pero hay compañías que lo pueden hacer un salón completo. Pero no sé no sé los nombres, pero preguntando lo que tú estabas, volviendo a lo que tú estabas preguntando, los estudiantes que se frustran y les da miedo. Creo que por eso es porque el agregar elementos de juego ha tenido tanto éxito, porque esas micro recompensas son muy buenas. Uno de los ejemplos exitosos es un juego mismo, Angry Birds. Es un juego buenísimo, muy grande. Y la razón era que lo construyeron de manera que cuando uno estaba jugando un nivel en particular, era lo suficientemente retador y se ponía un poquito más fácil para que uno lo ganara. O sea, que uno no se aburriera y dijera, no, ya. El 95% de las aplicaciones uno no la vuelve a abrir otra vez. Y eso es verdad para productos educativos que incluyen niveles que incrementan la dificultad de manera de recompensa, y entonces uno los chequea todos los días. El abrirla a todos los días, algo que se me ocurre para educación es Duolingo, que es la aplicación para aprender idiomas. Es un buen ejemplo de un producto educacional. No sé cuán efectivo sea, pero en cuanto a aprender, eso es algo que lo utilizamos en todos lados. Y de nuevo, Angry Birds lo juega la gente desde 5 años a 85. Pero hay una brecha allí. Estábamos hablando de aprendizaje de por vida y es enseñarle a los niños cuán importante son la adaptabilidad, esas habilidades del siglo XXI. La gente de mi edad, por ejemplo, no teníamos ese entrenamiento cuando éramos jóvenes. Nos entrenaron para las clases de matemáticas que yo tuve en el colegio. Era como que todavía estábamos en una carrera espacial con los rusos todavía. Era pelear la última guerra. Es un gran reto para la gente que está entre 35, 40 años, que quiere tener flexibilidad, pero se puede aprender.
Ahora sí. Mi nombre es Carlos.
I'm Luis Carlos. More than a question, I just wanted to conclude in what Elena was saying is we are on ease in learning processes because learning, we have competencies around the world, and curricula is in terms of competition, but competition is below the process. More than learning and competition, we should try about shaping minds. And you said it before, what is that jump? Has to do with thinking processes. We're talking about complexity. We are concentrated in intra and inter, which is properties and relationships, but we don't have transdiscipline that has to do with processes. Gartner said it with a Mind of the Future book. Educators have to rethink curricula around the world are out of shape, and we need to think about minds. Good morning. I am Angel Gonzalez. I teach math and physics. My question has to do, if you look on an app store, we see many applications that have grown exponentially the last 2, 3, 4 years, and it is overwhelming. And there are so many applications, but we don't understand the best ones. What would be your advice so that we can have a selection and take the best so that we can apply that to the classroom? Es una muy buena pregunta. Apple, de hecho, ha mejorado en ello que Android, porque tienen más lo que tienen es lo mejor del jardín, porque la gente se frustraba. Pero hay una gran barrera para entrar al App Store y Android tiene muchísimas más aplicaciones y entran cualquiera. Yo no recuerdo en este momento cuáles son los sitios para críticas para aplicaciones de educación, pero sí existen. Yo los he leído y pueden averiguarlo, porque es abrumador cuántas aplicaciones existen. Pero hay sitios de crítica donde sugieren las mejores y curan las mejores. Estamos hablando de Pearson, queremos tener un App Store para tener un sitio que sea accesible, pero no recuerdo en este momento. Si me mandan un correo, yo les contesto. Good morning. I am Andrea Medina. Let's say that everything we've listened about kids and they adapt very quickly to technologies, but what's amazing is how the elderly today are happy. My grandmother a year ago, she said, I don't want a new cell phone. I don't understand it. But when you work with this type of people and you find a big surprise, they want to learn. They don't have a process like other people. Everybody has a different cognitive process and emotional process. But to see how they get excited learning new technologies and talking to their grandson in Canada and to look at him through a screen is amazing. They only wanted to talk on the phone. Now they go into the computer and they want to learn a lot more things. My question is, I work with kids and the elderly. What guidelines? How can we make it more interesting, more practical, and so that they don't say it's difficult, but to say it's fun, I'm happy, and emotions are there, and have a key role in learning? How can we accelerate that learning with those the elderly? Es una gran pregunta y estoy seguro de que todo el mundo aquí está familiarizado con neuroplasticidad. Los niños, su cerebro tiene más neuroplasticidad y cuando uno envejece es más difícil cambiar las células del cerebro. La aplicación que mencioné antes, donde mide las ondas cerebrales, enfocada en midora, y también mi madre que tiene 72 años también lo sabe, ella podía dilucidarlo. Si le tomaba 30 segundos a mi hija, le tomaba 60 segundos, a mi madre le tomaba 90 segundos, pero lo hacía. Ella llegaba allí. Y creo que es genial que trabajes con los viejos, especialmente con tecnologías nuevas, porque hay más y más investigación que usa estas tecnologías, contrario a lo que la gente piensa. Prueba la neuroplasticidad, baja la probabilidad de impedimento cognitivo, pero al jugar diferentes juegos, al envejecer y diferentes tipos de juego, ese es el punto aquí. Si uno juega Sudoku, okay, una vez que uno es proficiente en Sudoku, ya deja de jugarlo y uno juega con otro tipo de juego. Hay versiones de estos juegos en tecnología, hay versiones que son físicas, pero eso es una sugerencia. Si uno comienza a trabajar con esos aprendices viejos en elementos de juegos, ellos van a aprender el proceso. Pero de nuevo, creo que también tienes razón, el componente social al interactuar con sus nietos, sus sobrinos, eso los estimula a aprender más. eso también es otra manera de cerrar esa brecha. I am Cesar Ortiz. I am in line with what somebody said. The most important thing is that we as teachers lose our fear. We are very fearful. We don't want to use technology, social media. We make our students turn off their cell phone before starting a class. In my case, I have Facebook groups for my students. I have a group of students where I have more than 1,000 students in Face. I have a group that has 600 students. I don't believe that students don't like to read. It's that we don't stimulate them. We don't encourage them to do it. My students read a book every semester, one book per semester, and after they read that one book, they ask me for a second one, and they tell me about reading another one. So we have to do away with that myth. In social media, it's great because a lot of times they don't go in the virtual classroom at the university, but they do go into Face. So if you interact, they know about assessment, academic processes. It is difficult at times when they write to you, midnight on a Sunday, and they ask you if you're awake. But as long as we adapt and we enjoy, they're happy, we will be happy also. Sí, ese es un gran punto. Y de nuevo, es liderar con ejemplo. Los grupos de Facebook son importantes. YouTube también es una herramienta fantástica de aprendizaje. Yo entrevistaba a los estudiantes hace años y mi hermano enseña educación especial en secundaria y les preguntaba a los estudiantes si les gustaba y me decían, lo odio. Porque yo estoy aquí porque tengo que estar aquí. Cuando termine, me voy. Y yo les preguntaba, ¿hay algo que sea útil para ti en el colegio? Y me decían, yo voy a trabajar en motos, entonces no necesito matemáticas. Entonces, él me decía que no le gustaba ninguna clase. Y él me decía, yo voy a YouTube y aprendo cosas en YouTube. La mayoría de su aprendizaje era hecho en YouTube. Tú utilizas Facebook. Y no le puedes decir solamente a la gente que algo es imposible, y el utilizar estas herramientas para tu ventaja y el tener acceso a ellas es mejor para ellos. Es darles un deseo. Quería preguntar si sabe de alguna investigación en el impacto o efecto de realidad aumentada para aprender idiomas. She made the question in English. Yo quisiera saber si hay investigación. Yo quisiera saber si me puede decir una en particular para el impacto de realidad aumentada para aprender idiomas. Para aprender idiomas, está preguntando algo genial. La investigación, no tenemos mucha investigación. Al principio habían unos estudios, serían muy cuestionables de una compañía que promueve realidad aumentada para aprender idiomas. Yo soy optimista de que va a ser útil. En Pearson nosotros tenemos una discusión de mesa redonda de Sinai, de Dubái, de Australia, para usar realidad virtual y aumentada para aprender idiomas. Estamos trabajando en eso en este momento y parte de nuestra investigación va a incluir esos estudios. Esto es algo que yo voy a compartir externamente también. Me gustaría sacarlo y enviarte un par de correos para que lo veas. Yo estoy buscando eso activamente, ese estudio, y lo quiero compartir. I'm sorry, I can't hear a word she's saying. At Javeriana University, about 2 months ago, students of foreign languages, they went into a contest, and they had to use all types of technology, and they conducted multimedia, and they had augmented reality to learn languages. It was 3 days. They got it in the university. It was total immersion, and one of my students won, and they went to Paris. They do that once per semester, so you could talk to people at Javeriana. They have multimedia, and so for them to learn languages through augmented reality. I think it's a great tool. Yo también quiero aprender de ello, del programa, suena bien.
Muchísimas gracias por haber estado acá, profesor. Les voy a pedir que me regalen una foto grupal que van a invitar a Mónica, la trabaja con piso. Gracias a esa alianza que tiene Minuto con piso, pues
Monica is going to talk about Pearson, and you were here last year.
Pues nada, simplemente el nombre de Pearson es un minuto. Gracias a los estudiantes que me dieron. Queremos agradecerles por este espacio, agradecerle a Denis, que están en la tecnología, de los directores de entonces compartimos todos estos avances.
Tengan la plena seguridad de que los estaremos involucrando para lo que tú decías, estos proyectos y la información de investigación, porque usualmente en Hispanoamérica no está, y pues lo estaremos coordinando a través del centro docente AEIOU. Entonces, muchísimas gracias por este espacio. Esperamos después venir a profundizar más en la parte pedagógica. Gracias.
Les voy a pedir, Camilo se me escapó, y les voy a pedir también, por favor, quienes puedan me ayuden con la evaluación del evento. Ya les van a repartir el formato, y mientras hacemos eso vamos aquí a posar para la foto del recuerdo.